Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak today. Obviously, I play quite a different role than the other speakers who have gone before me. I also am aware that I am the last speaker before the break, so I promise you that I'll be short and sharp. Today, I'm here to talk to you about an outsider's guide to happiness. 7 years ago, the philosopher Alain de Botton stood at a podium much like this one. He stood before more than 300 Cantabrians on the ground floor of a conference room at the Grand Chancellor Hotel. He made a plea. Buildings and objects should reflect the best of society, he said. Buildings must be constructed to suit their time and place. This is much like what Peter Townsend talks about when he talks about the tailwinds of our time. De Botton on that day decried the horrors of pastiche, that very, very human inclination we have to create a facsimile of the past. He flashed up images of housing estates in mock Tudor, mock Georgian, and bear with me Christchurch, neo-Gothic. He spoke in the abstract. The audience laughed and they nodded in a smug and intellectual agreement. De Botton was standing in that drab conference room ringed with polyester curtains to spruik his book, The Architecture of Happiness. But no one could have known that day that he was actually speaking to us and to our future. His messages were several years too early. Our city was yet to fall, our built heritage yet to crumble. We were yet to be forced to make the real and wholesale decisions that we are being forced to make today about our city, about its architecture, and about our happiness. Most of the people who were at that event, which was hosted by the press, will have forgotten the messages that de Botton gave us that night, but we need them now. He was giving us an outsider's guide to happiness. He challenged the future us to consider the environments that we build. Speaking of greenfield developments, he said, "We owe it to the fields that our houses will not be inferiors of the virgin land that they have replaced. We owe it to the worms and the trees that the buildings we cover them with will stand as promises of the highest and most intelligent kinds of happiness." Something to think about now. These are the challenges that our city must face today. We must aim not only for pragmatism, but also for happiness and for beauty. We owe it not just to the worms, but to the people who have gone before us and to those who will follow us. We must build something better and something stronger, and it's wonderful to hear so many of the speakers today talking about that need for a combined vision, for us to agree, and surely there is nothing better that we should agree on than building something stronger. We must not settle for mediocrity. We must not attempt to recreate the past. The media, and specifically the press, have a critical role to play in all of this. We are the fourth estate, and we are committed to driving the other three estates towards robust decisions that aim to ensure that the city not only recovers, but that it soars. Our first and second estates, the clergy and government, both local and central, have demonstrated leadership, but they have also demonstrated failings. A sophisticated media, though, takes time to celebrate the triumphs, and at the press we do this every day. We dedicate thousands of words to acknowledging successes both small and large. I'm just going to, as I speak, just put up some of the front pages these are from February alone that will give you an indication of the kind of issues that we cover every day. I'd also like to take a few moments to recognise some of the triumphs that we had. Infrastructure progress made by Skirt, Orion, the Christchurch City Council, the CCDU and SERA is visible at every turn. Every time I go out on my bike or I go for a walk or a run, there is evidence at every corner. At lunchtimes, I jog around the boundary of the CBD red zone, and I'm very grateful to Roger and to Jerry every time they make that area smaller. My run gets shorter. Thanks, guys. I'm also getting on with it with a quiet self-assurance of the Arts Centre management. Developers across our city are pushing ahead with a flamboyance and ballsiness that is to be admired. Our city is booming, and as Peter Townsend told the press last October, you can smell the money. Great coat, thanks Peter. The transitional cathedral is growing like a tiny rare flower. It is easily overlooked by rare Cantabrians, but Shiguru Ban's temple is creating a focal point for international attention. As the influential editor of the US magazine Architectural Record noted last month, in Christchurch, imagination is fueling the potential for a lively urban future, with Barnes Cathedral an emblem of the possibilities. And I just love that possibility, it's so tremendous. On a visit to Christchurch last month, she gently reminded us that without this structure, the Christchurch story could easily be forgotten. But creative excellence can be found everywhere. The Christchurch City Art Gallery's Gutsy Outer Spaces program is delivering art without a gallery. Christchurch Museum's Quake City managed to sympathetically tell a story that is still raw for so many. The Christchurch Symphony Orchestra, the Loons, the Court Theatre, I could go on. There are so many creative organisations that are delivering to their audiences without the certainty of a permanent base. And communities have found strength. Volunteering has hit the mainstream. Gap Filler, Greening the Rubble, Festa, the Student Volunteer Army, the Ministry of Awesome would all have been once viewed as fringe. But now they are literally and metaphorically filling gaps in our city. And business excellence is flourishing too. Epic made innovation real. SMEs are getting back on their feet. New businesses are flourishing in the rebuild climate, as Peter Townsend notes, and old businesses are adapting to a new way of life. And of course, enveloping all of this in a warm embrace is Ngāi Tahu. There is much to embrace and celebrate, and we in the media enjoy recognising this, because to do so creates that climate of possibility. But a sophisticated media must also identify when our first and second estates, church and state, fail. Because the victims of those failings is the third estate, the people. No one is responsible for the quakes, of course not, but we are all responsible for our actions since. When businesses fail, when the pace of the rebuild falters, when housing inflation rockets, it is the people who suffer. When politicians and officials squabble, when planning focuses on process and loses sight of innovation, when public money is wasted, when public events fail to deliver, it is the people who suffer. When school communities are threatened, when teachers are not paid, it is the people who suffer. When corruption sneaks in, when incompetence prevails, when information is withheld, when decisions are opaque, it is the people who suffer. Education, housing, the rebuild, planning, government, council, public spending, the Christchurch Cathedral, Ikisu settlements, the insurance industry. The press has been robust in covering these issues, and you should demand no less of us. You should expect us to not only showcase success, but to root out unfairness. You should expect us to call it when organisations and people fail, and you should expect us to investigate on your behalf. And we do this. Every day we ask questions of the leaders in this community, and we expect answers on your behalf. But bad news and robust coverage do not always make us popular. I received an email last week. Shame on you, it said. Shame on you, a reader wrote to me. She went on. Comments about Ellerslie were a low blow to all of the hundreds of people who had put in long hours to make the show a success. And that reader was right. A negative review of the Ellerslie Flower Show would have been a blow to the organisers. I appreciate that. But even when balanced against the dozens of positive stories that we did about the event. But was it low? Should we settle for mediocrity when millions of dollars of public money have been invested? Do we want to gloss over failings to avoid hurting feelings? Do we want to deliver poor experiences to the people who choose to live in and to visit our city? The press is read by more than 215,000 people every day. More than 30,000 more log on to press.co.nz to get updates throughout the day. Our readers trust us. And this gives our journalists a responsibility that none of us take for granted. We're not builders, we're not planners, we're not architects nor administrators, but we, with our colleagues from other media organisations, can work with each of you to be leaders. The Fourth Estate leads a discussion and shapes a public discourse about the city we live in now and the city our people want for the future. We've got more than 100 editorial staff braced at Press House in Gloucester Street. We were one of the first businesses back into the central city, and we're waiting patiently for others to join us. We are standing ready and willing to support all of you who are actively involved in the rebuild. Our stories, analysis and critical judgment, both positive and negative, will make our future city stronger. We will not celebrate attempts to recreate the past. We will not celebrate needless battles. We will be quick to identify failings. We will not settle for mediocrity in this rebuild. We believe that this city can be better than before, and we will continue to challenge every person and organisation in this rebuild to innovate, to aim for excellence and to move quickly to create better lives for us all. I invite you, all of you here today, to work with the press, to engage with the people of this city, and to build an urban environment of which we all can be proud. Our happiness depends on it.